Alright, so I just wanted to start by kind of introducing what I'm doing. I'm doing a recap of 6 games I played at a recent tournament with 7 rounds. I ended up not playing the 7th round. Started out, possibly would have been one of my best tournaments ever. I feel like I outplayed almost all my opponents, and if I take away a couple just terrible blunders, especially one really bad blunder, in the last couple of games, I would have probably hit a new peak rating and had a really insane performance. As it is, it still ended up slightly above average, but I kind of threw away 2 games at the end. But anyway, Matt asked me if I would do a recap of the videos, and as much as I didn't want to because of how frustrating the last couple of games were, and not because I was outplayed, but just because of what I did to myself, I didn't want to. But then I realized, you know what, it's instructional and it's cathartic and it's good for me to go through and kind of own why I made those mistakes. And I did have a very high level of play for the majority of my games, so hopefully it'll be instructional for some other people. So with that, I'm going to start with round 1. Round 1 was against Brandon Weld. He was 1086, although I think that rating is very old or something because he was outplaying some much higher rated players during that tournament. But I had black against him, so I'll go ahead and flip the board here. Let's go ahead and flip this. And he started with e4. Alright, let's go ahead and kill the computer here. I also want to just mention that I'm going to go through these without a computer. I haven't looked at them with a computer. I'm just going to go through my thought process in each game, and obviously there's going to be some errors in that because it's not going to be computer checked. But you can kind of hear my thought process, how I view the game, and then I can check with the computer and look for any additional misses there or incorrect judgments. But hopefully this will show you how to analyze a game. I'm no expert on analyzing games. I think it's kind of the biggest mystery for every improving chess player. How do you analyze your games appropriately? But hopefully this will help somebody else, and then maybe I can get feedback from people on how to change my own way of analyzing. Alright, so e4, c6. He continued with d4, and I played d5. And then he played f3, which is the fantasy variation, which is not very common. Certainly don't see that from a 1086 player very often. And I'll be honest, I probably don't know the fantasy variation as well as I should, so I should probably go back and review some of these lines. But I do know that queen b6 is a good move here, and it's what I usually play when I see the fantasy. And knight c3 is generally what's the continuation, and then after the queen's already here, then you take, and then play e5. White could take, but you hardly feel down a pawn there with those being double isolated pawns and this diagonal being potentially very weak. Alright, so after e5, white played knight f3, which I believe is the main continuation here. E takes d4. Well, and I was expecting knight takes d4 because that's, from what I understand, that's the main continuation. But he played queen takes d4, and I don't know if this is because I am a much higher rated player, and he thought, hey, let's get the queens off, I'm trading down material. I guess maybe that's why, but I went ahead and took. I don't have a problem with trading off queens. So after knight takes d4, then he played bishop to I wrote bishop g4, but I think it must be bishop to g5. Oh, I'm sorry. Well, I'm losing track of things. I played bishop g4. Okay, yeah. Here we go. Alright, so sorry about that. Now, this was a strange move. I kind of regret this move. I feel like this was, it worked out in the game, but I think this was asking for a little bit too much. The reason I played this move was I didn't see very many good squares for the bishop. So obviously it's blocked in over here. This is just an ugly looking move, and it gets in the way of like my knight. This might be okay, but I didn't really want to just give up my bishop like that, and I could continue with my knights first, but what I was considering is this bishop can't go there, can't go there, can't go here. This looks bad. That looks bad. So the only square I saw that made any sense for the bishop was here. And I thought white could play against that immediately and just prevent it. In which case, then this bishop, even though some material's traded off and things are opening up, this bishop is still kind of hard to get out. But I think I really just need to get my knights out, and, you know, I can worry about this bishop later. Like, maybe I can do something like this. I'm not sure. And I also think he could have just harassed this bishop. I don't know... I don't know how far he takes it. I don't know if he wants to do that or not. Maybe, but this feels a little loose. I got away with it in the game, but I feel like against a stronger player, they would find a way to punish this. As far as like concrete variations, other than after h3, I'm not sure. I don't know if this makes sense or not. I had kind of anticipated something like this, and then bringing the bishop back and putting more pressure here, but yeah, I'm not sure. I didn't feel like this was a very good move though, and I don't know why I played it. Alright, so bishop g4, he plays bishop d3, which I was, okay, I mean, just developing. Knight d7, he castled, knight f6, and then he played bishop f4, so I was hoping for this move. Now, I know you don't really want to play hope chess, but, you know, other than this weird move, this is still a weird move. I don't like it. I'm sure white's better after that. But I kind of learned my lesson after this move, and I was like, okay, I need to get my knights out, and I'm going to wait to develop this bishop and see where it goes, because this seems like the most natural square. But if white develops their bishop there, maybe I don't want to put my bishop there. Maybe I want to go here. And if white doesn't put their bishop there, let's say they go here, or they go here, or they go here, then I can move my bishop to c5, and it's hitting this knight, and the only defense for white is to move the bishop a second time to that square. So, sorry about that arrow. Move that a second time to that square, which loses white a tempo. So I feel like white either needs to preemptively move the bishop here, or preemptively move this knight, or preemptively move the king. But they need to do something other than this bishop f4. I think I'm actually now better after this move, because after bishop f4, I played bishop c5, and he spent some time thinking, and the only thing he could come up with is this, which is all I think you can do, because this knight can't be defended. The nice thing is this ugly-looking bishop is actually covering this square. Now, I do wonder, you know, if white had, say, chased this sooner, you know, something like this. I don't know that this is best, but if they had chased this sooner, could they get away with something like this now because they could bring the knight back? Maybe. I'm still not sure that I like this approach for white, but maybe they could have. But once they've already played bishop f4, and I go here, there's no time for something like this because I take the knight with check. So like that would have had to have already been played if that works at all. All right, so he plays bishop to e3, and I castle. I thought about queenside castling. Queenside castling might have been better. I thought about queenside castling because there's these discoveries here, but I feel like either one is okay. I wasn't sure about this pawn being tender at some point, if my king's not guarding it and my rook's not guarding it, but queenside castling might make more sense. But I'm sure this is fine. Alright, so he plays king h1. I was happy to see that. I thought that was an unnecessary move, especially since he's already moved his bishop. So I was pretty happy with that. Alright, so I played rook f e8, adding pressure on this pawn. And he played rook a to e1, defending the bishop, and x-ray defending the pawn. Then I played rook a to d8, And the idea here is, well, I mean, these make sense. Just centralize my rooks, and maybe there's some kind of like discovery attack on this knight, right? That's the idea anyway. But no matter what he does, like, this is just a nice developing move. Alright, and then he played knight f5, and I thought this was a mistake. I think he's just helping me to kind of open up the center for my rooks. And this bishop was a little awkward, and this gives me a target to immediately trade it off for. So after knight f5, I take it with the bishop. And alright, so here I think white needs to take this bishop with the rook. And after, I think, takes, I'd have to think here. So as far as like my best continuation, I don't know if like maybe it's just centralizing the knight, trying to get this guy off. That kind of makes sense. Also might be ideas here. Something like that, but I think white's still playing on. Obviously you can't take with the pawn because of that bishop drops. But he played here, and I thought that this just dropped a pawn. Because I take. And after knight takes c5, I guess the reason he took here is because he wanted to be able to take with this pawn. But knight takes d3. And I went through a little bit of finesse here. So if I take this rook first, and then take here. Now he never has this pin. I wasn't worried about that because I have this check, which is actually a fork, and that's just game over. But I just thought this could be a little bit annoying. Potentially. Could be. Could be a little bit annoying. I wasn't sure. I mean, he has back rank issues too. But I didn't see a point in allowing that, because I just figured, alright, if I take here, if he takes, I can just take it, right? Because my rook is defended by my knight, and I don't mind my knight coming back. Alright, so anyway, yeah, that was the idea, is just leave his rook not on this file yet. Alright, so after knight takes d3, he played rook takes, check. I took with the knight, because I want to be able to take this pawn. And then he played here, and I played knight to d6. So I thought this was a nice finesse, and this is why I played that move order, because I've snatched the pawn, got my knight on a halfway decent square. I'm covering the checkmating square, and if his rook infiltrates, I'm actually conveniently covering that pawn too. So that's why I went for this variation. After knight d6, he did play here. I chased the rook, and then he played here, which I thought was very interesting, because I didn't know what he was trying to do. So I just kept chasing the rook, because, I mean, I don't know where the rook's going. I guess it could just keep moving, but the rook's kind of, it's not getting trapped. Well, it might just be getting trapped, right? Because if it moves over, the knight's covering these squares, and my king is covering all of these. So yeah, I didn't know where this rook was going. I think once he plays here, his rook is just lost, which actually makes this whole idea bad, because he just has to go back somewhere. Yeah, so here he didn't do that. He played this, which just Oh, you know what? I did lose tempo, didn't I? Somewhere. Oh, right. I apologize. I messed that up a little bit. After knight takes d3, rook, or after rook takes d3, so let's go back. I apologize. After rook takes d3, he played h3 so that there wouldn't be any back rank issues. So slight change there. And I went here for two reasons. Pressure on this, and when we get to that variation, I was just looking at my knight can actually hop out and defend my rook. Okay, so anyway, we did go down to this variation. I just forgot that h3 and rook d2 was inserted. There we go. Here, here, here. Again, same thing. I didn't know where this rook was going because it's getting trapped, and then he went here, and I just took. Yeah. Anyway, that's why I knew I messed up the line there, because my knight was covering my rook. But he resigned, he dropped a piece there, and rook has a trade-off, and he's just down a knight and a pawn, and that's pretty easily winning. Alright, so as far as how well I played, let's go ahead and turn on the computer a little bit here. So I know this is all pretty standard stuff. Yep, e5. Yeah, no, the queen trade was not standard. That was yes, we're kind of in new territory. Yeah, I guess it's playable for white, but it's not much going on here. Now this move was not good, I'm sure. So yeah, the computer just wants to kick it right away with h3. Now if I go here, is it suggesting I kick it still? Yeah, or bishop f4 first, but okay, so it wants white to play this. Okay, so I get my bishop out, I put pressure here, but white gets a nice expansion. And that says white's just, you know, a bit better, +1. Okay, so, you know, maybe it's not the end of the world, but definitely not the most accurate to play this way, because white definitely has an advantage. But I don't see anything. It's not like I'm dropping a pawn or anything, so nothing super concrete. Okay, so he didn't do that. He played bishop d3, right? I played knight d7. Yeah, so the advantage is already kind of shrunk after this, because it wanted bishop f4. That's a more active square for that bishop. This is just a very defensive post for that bishop. Okay, so after knight d7, he castled. Interestingly, the computer wants me to just queenside castle. Or knight gf6, which I think is what I played, right? Okay, so I played knight gf6, which looks fine. I'm a little curious about this queenside castle. I guess I don't care about the pawn. What happens if I take the pawn? Or if white takes the pawn? Bishop to c5. Okay, so that same theme. Bishop goes there. Knight to e5. And yeah, okay, so if the rook takes, so I've given up 2 pawns. I see, yeah, this knight is hanging. This knight's hanging. I missed that. Okay, right. So he can't take the pawn. He can't take the pawn because this rook is hitting this knight, this bishop is hitting this knight. If he takes this pawn, he's just dropping the piece for a couple pawns. And conveniently, what's interesting is, so like, he grabs this pawn, he's also hitting my bishop, but knight e5 conveniently covers the bishop. Alright, so I missed that. I saw the idea in the game of like putting a rook on the d file with some kind of discovery, but I didn't see... I missed that there's this potential of queenside castle, and if he takes, he's lost because bishop c5, knight e5 is so fast. And of course he doesn't have to take though, but queenside castling is very, very good there. Okay, so I played knight gf6, I'm sure that's fine too. And he played bishop f4, which I'm sure is wrong because bishop c5 is now... Yeah, so black is definitely better now. Of course he has to go back. Sure, that's his only move, right? Yeah, bishop e3 only move. And I castled here, which looks like it's the best move. So, fairly accurate game so far, for the most part. And yeah, king h1 was not good. It's just not even a candidate move. It doesn't really accomplish anything. Yeah, rook f8, top move, makes sense. Rook a to e1. Yeah, rook 88's one of the top moves. And the nice thing here, I didn't mention this, but as long as this bishop isn't kicked away, which if it is, it does add pressure to this pawn, but as long as it's not kicked away, white has a hard time putting a rook here to help defend against the pressure on the d-file. So I definitely have a lot of pressure going. And then knight f5 is just bad. Yeah, top move against h3, starting to try and ask that bishop some questions. Bishop g1, okay, moving the bishop back, adding defense this pawn and defending your bishop with the king and rook. Makes sense, but knight f5 I'm sure is probably lost. Or borderline losing. Yeah, it's losing. Knight f5 just lost the game for black. Or for white, I mean. Yeah, bishop takes f5. And rook takes f5 I'm sure is the best. Yeah, rook takes f5 is much better than bishop takes c5. Now I'm curious what the computer suggests. So after rook takes, I imagine I take the bishop. Yeah, bishop takes, rook takes. And what does it suggest here for black? Is it knight g4? Interesting. So knight e5 is a good move, but knight g4. And what if they just say move here? Ah, okay. Bring this knight over. Alright, so it does want a knight on e5, but it wants this knight on e5. Yeah, this is a little interesting because it says black is like -2, you know, much better to winning. But I don't see where I'm like winning material anytime soon, so it's kind of not super clear. But I would absolutely love to have this position as black, which is what I kind of thought in the game. That I wouldn't mind if he took with the rook here. Because this bishop is really bad, this pawn's isolated, and my knights can find nice squares here, you know, somewhere in the center of the board. I could probably even take the bishop pair back, or I'm not bishop pair, but take his bishop off at any point. I could anchor this in. There's lots of different ideas, depending on what he does, but I definitely felt better if he did that. And of course he made things easier on me when he took this way. I don't think there was a way for him to save the pawn after I take here. Yeah, because it just says if he takes here, I'm just going to take here twice. And if he does like he did... It actually likes rook takes first. Oh, it's the same. Same thing. Okay, it's bouncing back and forth. But okay, yeah, knight takes... Yeah, trades here. Knight takes. He has to take back. Again, no time for the pen because of the fork. And then rook takes d3. Right, and okay. Yeah, so everything I calculated there was correct, and black is just much better winning, really. So, overall a pretty well played game. Only move I would criticize myself for in this game was, and maybe it wasn't as bad as I thought, but bishop g4. Yeah, because I don't know. I think it just gives white like a target to chase a little bit, but it's not like it loses. Instead of bishop to g4, let's see what the best move here is. Bishop c5, okay. Or d6. Okay, so bishop c5 felt natural. I played it later in the game. Here I thought he might just chase the bishop. Do I not care about that? So it actually suggests bishop e3. Okay, so I did think about this in the game. So I was wondering if I do this and he chases, if I then play bishop b4, and I guess that's what it suggests, is if he plays knight b3, or even bishop d6. But I just want to chase away the centralized knight first. But okay, just bishop c5, depending on what he does, like let's say he does this, then knight f6, queenside castles. Do I castle, or castling's fine, knight b to d7. Alright, so the computer says just don't worry about this bishop, figure it out later. Okay. And in fact, in some lines, oh, it went away, but I saw bishop g4 there, so maybe bishop g4 at some point makes sense, especially if it's with tempo off that rook. But okay, yeah, it was just a little loose, played out early with no targets, and it itself being a target. But other than bishop g4, yeah, I feel like I played really well in this game. So, that's it for round 1.